They mocked his ex-wife for failing to give their Mafia dynasty an heir. Then on the morning of Damian Blackwood's wedding, Claire Bennett walked through the iron gates with 3 5-year-old children, each carrying his unmistakable gray eyes. The music faltered. Champagne glasses stopped halfway to painted lips. And beneath the white silk canopy, the most powerful family on Chicago's North Shore realized the woman they had discarded had not returned broken. She had returned with the truth. Claire knew what it meant to be blamed for a failure that was never hers, to leave a marriage with nothing but silence, fear, and a secret growing inside her. But this is not only a story about revenge. It is about betrayal, motherhood power, and whether trust can survive after love has been destroyed. Watch closely. Every lie revealed tonight will bring an empire closer to collapse, like the video and comment where you are watching from. 5 years earlier, before the white silk canopy, before the frozen champagne glasses, before 3 children walked into a wedding carrying Damian Blackwood's eyes, Claire Bennett believed love could make a dangerous world feel ordinary. She met Damian in a freight warehouse on the south side of Chicago. It was raining that night, hard enough to turn the loading yard into black mirrors. Tractor trailers idled beneath yellow security lights while men in reflective jackets shouted over the hiss of brakes and the metallic crash of cargo doors. Claire stood beneath the awning with a clipboard pressed against her chest, arguing with a driver who insisted his shipment had priority. Then a black sedan rolled through the gate. The yard manager went silent. So did the driver. Damian stepped out wearing a dark wool coat, no umbrella, no visible impatience. Rain darkened his shoulders as he crossed the pavement. He was 30, controlled, and already carried the kind of authority that made men stand straighter before he spoke. Claire did not know who he was. She only knew that his company had submitted the wrong freight code and expected everyone else to pretend the mistake belonged to someone lower on the ladder. "Your truck is not moving tonight," she told him. The yard manager looked as if she had just stepped in front of a train. Damian glanced at the clipboard. "Do you know whose shipment this is?" "Yes." His eyes lifted to hers. "Then you understand the problem. I understand your paperwork is wrong." The driver looked away. No one wanted to be seen listening. Damian stepped closer, not threatening, but near enough that Claire could smell rain and cedar on his coat. "You are holding $600,000 in equipment because of one number. I am holding it because one number can put the wrong cargo on the wrong route. If that happens, your equipment becomes somebody else's problem, and I become the person who signed it through." Most people apologized when Damian Blackwood stared at them too long. Claire held the clipboard between them and waited. Something shifted in his expression. Not amusement exactly, recognition. "Fix the code," he said to the man beside him. The man nodded immediately. Damian looked at Claire again. "What is your name, Claire Bennett?" He repeated it once, as if committing it to memory. 3 days later, flowers arrived at her office. There was no card. A week after that, Damian appeared at the coffee shop across from the warehouse and sat at her table without asking. Claire looked at his expensive coat, his polished shoes, and the 2 men waiting outside. "You always travel with an audience. They are not an audience." "What are they? Insurance?" She closed the report she had been reading. Against what Damian looked through the window at the men. Bad decisions. Claire should have walked away then. Years later, she would remember that answer and wonder whether he had been warning her or describing himself. Instead, she stayed. Their relationship began in quiet places. Late-night diners, private booths in restaurants where the waiters never wrote down the order. Her apartment where Damian would remove his jacket, loosen his tie, and stand in the small kitchen as though the narrow walls had released something in him. Claire's life was not impressive. Her plates did not match. The radiator knocked every 20 minutes. The cabinet above the sink never closed properly. Damian noticed all of it and came back anyway. In her apartment, no one called him Mr. Blackwood. No one waited for him to decide when the room could breathe. Claire handed him a chipped blue mug and told him when he was wrong. He looked at her as if honesty were a language he had almost forgotten. For the first few months, she believed that was enough. He told her the Blackwood family owned transportation companies, warehouses, private security firms, and several restaurants. He spoke about the legal businesses carefully and the rest not at all. Claire understood there were shadows around his money. She did not understand their size. The first time she saw a gun beneath his jacket, they were leaving a restaurant near the river. Damian reached for her hand. His coat shifted and the metal caught the streetlight. Claire stopped walking. "What is that?" Damian looked down, then back at her. "Protection. You said the men outside were protection. They are. Then why do you need that?" His face closed slightly. "Because sometimes they are not enough." Claire pulled her hand free. "Who are you?" Damian did not lie, not completely. He told her his family had enemies. He told her his father had built power through unions, freight routes, gambling, and political favors. He told her certain businesses existed outside the law. He did not tell her how many men had died protecting those businesses. He did not tell her that his mother had already asked for Claire's full background. He did not tell her that Evelyn Blackwood knew Claire's parents were dead before Damian ever brought Claire to the estate. The Blackwood house stood in Lake Forest behind stone walls and iron gates. It faced Lake Michigan, though the water could only be seen from the rear terraces. The front was designed for arrival. Tall windows, white limestone, columns large enough to make every visitor feel smaller than they had before entering. Claire wore a navy dress the first time Damian took her there. She had bought it 2 days earlier and removed the price tag in the car. Evelyn received them in the drawing room. She was 60 years old, silver-haired, elegant, and still in a way that made stillness feel more dangerous than movement. Her gaze traveled over Claire once, shoes, dress, hands, face. Then she smiled. "Damian tells me you work in freight logistics." "I do. How practical." Claire heard the judgment beneath the word. Damian either did not hear it or chose not to. Dinner lasted 2 hours. Evelyn asked about Claire's parents. Claire explained they had died in a car accident while she was in college. "Brothers?" Evelyn asked. "No. Sisters? No. Close cousins, one aunt in Wisconsin." Evelyn lifted her wine glass. So little family. Claire felt Damian's hand close over hers beneath the table. At the time, she took it for reassurance. Only later did she understand that Evelyn was not expressing sympathy. She was taking inventory. Damian proposed 6 months later. He did it in Claire's apartment. No photographers, no family dinner. No ring hidden in champagne. He stood beside the broken kitchen cabinet and held out a small velvet box. "I am better here," he said. Claire looked at him. "Here in my kitchen, with you." It was the most vulnerable thing she had ever heard him say. She accepted. The wedding was private by Blackwood standards and enormous by everyone else's. Judges attended. Business owners attended. Men Claire recognized from newspaper photographs kissed Evelyn's cheek and avoided looking directly at Damian's father. Claire smiled through introductions she did not understand. That night, after the guests left, Damian carried her into the bedroom at the Lake Forest house. For a while, she believed she had entered the family because Damian loved her. The truth was that Damian had brought her inside. Those were not the same thing. In the beginning, married life had soft edges. Damian brought coffee to bed when he was home. Claire rearranged the books in his study and ignored his objections. They argued about music in the car. They laughed in private. He touched the back of her neck when passing behind her, a small gesture that felt more intimate than kissing. Then Damian's father died. A heart attack, sudden and clean, during a meeting in one of the downtown offices. By sunset, the house was full of men. By midnight, Damian belonged to all of them. Evelyn stood beside him at the funeral like a queen placing a crown on her son's head. After that, Damian came home later. He took calls during dinner. He began speaking to Claire in unfinished sentences. "I need you at the charity dinner. My mother will explain. Do not ask about that account. You are safer if you do not know." Claire hated that phrase. Safer if you do not know. It became the lock on every door. Evelyn entered the spaces Damian abandoned. She corrected Claire's clothing before public events. She changed the seating at dinner so Claire would not sit near important guests. She criticized the way Claire spoke to staff. She told Claire that a Blackwood wife never appeared tired, never raised her voice, and never allowed private disappointment to become public discomfort. Then came the questions about children. At first, they were indirect. Evelyn sent nursery catalogs to the house. She mentioned Damian's father had expected a grandson. She arranged lunches with women who discussed fertility as if comparing investment portfolios. When Claire had not become pregnant after 8 months, the questions sharpened. "What does your doctor say? Have you changed your diet? You are not getting younger." Claire was 26. Damian told her to ignore it. "She worries about succession." I am not a succession plan, Claire said. Damian kissed her forehead. Not to me, but he never said that to Evelyn. That distinction began to rot inside the marriage. Claire visited 2 doctors. Both told her there was no obvious problem and that conception could take time. Evelyn dismissed them. She arranged an appointment with Dr. Samuel Wynne, a physician whose office occupied the top floor of a private clinic funded by the Blackwood Foundation. The examination was clinical and brief. Dr. Wynne asked questions without looking at Claire. A week later, the report arrived. The language was dense. The conclusion was simple. Claire had a uterine abnormality. Pregnancy was highly unlikely. If conception occurred, carrying a child could present serious risks. Claire read the final paragraph 3 times. Damian found her sitting on the bathroom floor. The report lay open beside her. He crouched. Claire looked at him. He could be wrong. Damian's hand rested on her shoulder. We can speak to him again. I want another doctor, of course. But another doctor never came. Evelyn scheduled meetings. Damian's advisors discussed inheritance structures. Dr. Wynne called Damian privately and reinforced the diagnosis. Within weeks, the question was no longer whether the report was accurate. The question was what the Blackwood family would do about Claire. One night, Claire stood in their bedroom while Damian removed his cufflinks. Do you believe him? Damian placed one cufflink on the dresser. He is respected. That was not my question. He looked at her reflection in the mirror. Claire, do you believe I cannot have children? I do not know what to believe. Then why are you letting your mother speak as if my body is a failed business deal? His jaw tightened. This is not easy for me either. The sentence landed harder than anger. Claire stared at him. For you, that is not what I meant. It is exactly what you meant. Damian turned. I am carrying the future of this family, and I am carrying what silence. Claire waited for him to cross the room. He did not. The divorce papers appeared 6 weeks later. Evelyn presented them in the library. Rain pressed against the tall windows. The fire had burned low, leaving the room too cold for the season. Claire sat on one side of the long table. Evelyn sat across from her. Damian stood near the window. He did not sit. The settlement was generous. A Chicago apartment, a cash payment, confidentiality provisions, a clause prohibiting Claire from using the Blackwood name publicly. Evelyn folded her hands. You will be comfortable. Claire did not look at her. She looked at Damian. Is this what you want? Damian's face was pale beneath the controlled expression. This is what the family needs. Claire felt something inside her go quiet. Not break. Breaking was loud. This was more like a light switching off in an empty room. She signed every page. Evelyn collected the papers. You should leave tonight. Claire rose. Damian finally moved. Claire. She looked at him. For 1 second she saw regret in his face. Regret without action. It was the expression that would define him in her memory for the next 5 years. She walked past him. At a pharmacy outside Waukegan, Claire bought 3 pregnancy tests. She had been late for 12 days. Stress, she had told herself. Shock, lack of sleep. She took the tests in the bathroom of a roadside motel because she had nowhere else to go. 3 white sticks rested on the sink. 3 blue lines appeared. Claire lowered herself to the tile floor. Outside trucks moved along the highway, their lights sliding across the bathroom wall. She pressed both hands over her mouth. The first feeling was not joy. It was fear. She thought of Damian. She thought of calling him. Then she heard Evelyn's voice. This family needs an heir. She remembered cameras in the hallways, drivers who reported every rote, doctors paid through family foundations, a settlement agreement designed to erase her. If she returned pregnant, the Blackwoods would not see a frightened woman. They would see ownership. Claire placed one hand over her stomach. No, she whispered. The word sounded small in the motel bathroom. She said it again. No. By morning, she had a plan. She withdrew part of the settlement in cash. She rented a car under her middle name. She moved first to Rockford, then to Madison, then finally to Milwaukee. She changed jobs. She changed her mailing address. She stopped using social media. She told no one except her aunt. The pregnancy was difficult. At 28 weeks, Claire was placed on partial bed rest. At 33 weeks, during a February snowstorm, her water broke. Her aunt drove through streets buried in ice while Claire gripped the door handle and counted breaths. Noah was born first. 6 minutes later came Lily. Owen arrived last silent for 3 terrible seconds before releasing a thin cry that made Claire sob. The babies were taken to intensive care. Claire stood beside 3 incubators with hospital bracelets cutting into her wrist. No husband, no Blackwood doctors, no guards outside the door, only machines' fluorescent light and 3 tiny lives fighting to remain in the world. She named them Bennett. On each birth certificate, the line for the father remained blank. 5 years passed in alarms, bottles, rent payments, school forms, fevers, overtime shifts, and the constant calculation of what could be afforded. Claire returned to freight logistics. She worked nights when she had to. She learned which grocery store reduced meat after 8. She learned how to sleep in 90-minute fragments. She learned that 3 children could destroy a living room in less than 4 minutes and restore her will to live with one sleepy hand reaching for hers. Noah became serious first. Lily watched everything. Owen asked questions no adult was prepared to answer. They knew their father existed. They did not know his name. Claire kept photographs hidden in a locked box. One of Damian laughing in her kitchen, one from their wedding, one taken before his father's funeral before grief and power hardened him into someone she no longer recognized. Then the invitation arrived. Cream paper, black lettering, the Blackwood crest pressed into the top. Damian Blackwood and Victoria Hale, Lake Forest, Saturday afternoon. Beneath the formal wording, Evelyn had written one sentence. "I thought you should see how quickly a family replaces what cannot serve it." Claire left the invitation on the kitchen table for 6 days. On the 7th morning, Noah found it. Who is Damian Blackwood? Claire looked at the gray eyes of the son who had learned to protect his brother and sister before he had learned to tie his shoes. She looked at Lily, who had already stopped coloring. She looked at Owen waiting with his cereal spoon halfway to his mouth. Claire pulled out a chair and sat. "He is your father." No one spoke. Then Lily asked the question Claire had feared for 5 years. "Does he know about us, no?" Owen lowered his spoon. "Why not?" Claire looked at Evelyn's handwriting. "Because I was afraid of his family." Noah's expression tightened. "Are you still afraid?" Claire folded the invitation once. Then again, yes. She stood and crossed to the window. Milwaukee moved beyond the glass ordinary and gray people walking dogs' buses, stopping a woman pushing a stroller beneath the bare trees. Claire pressed her palm against the folded card. Fear had protected them. Silence had protected them. But Evelyn had reached into the life Claire built and reminded her that silence could also become a leash. Claire turned back to the children. "We are going to Chicago." 5 years later, beneath the white canopy at the Blackwood estate, Damian stood 3 feet away from the family he had never known existed, and Claire held the envelope that could prove every word. Damian stared at it as if it contained something alive. Around them, the wedding lawn had gone silent. The string quartet had stopped playing. The violinist nearest the aisle still held her bow in the air, frozen above the strings. A waiter stood beside the bar with 6 champagne glasses balanced on a silver tray, his face carefully empty while his eyes moved between Claire, the children, and the man who had been waiting at the altar. Owen was still looking up at Damian. "Did you know you already had a family?" Damian's lips parted. No answer came. Claire could see the question move through him not as language but as impact. It struck somewhere beneath the control he wore in public. His gaze returned to the children, measuring height, age, bone structure, every detail his mind could seize, while the rest of the world waited for him to become a man capable of understanding what stood in front of him. Evelyn recovered first. She always did. "This conversation will continue inside." Her voice carried just far enough to remind the guests that she still believed she controlled the scene. Claire did not look at her. She held the envelope toward Damian. "Read it here." Evelyn's eyes sharpened. "Claire, you invited me to a public wedding. This is not a negotiation. It became one the moment you put my name on the guest list." A murmur moved through the crowd. Damian reached for the envelope. His fingers brushed Claire's. She felt the contact and hated that she felt it. 5 years had passed, but her body remembered the shape of his hand before her mind could reject the memory. Damian opened the envelope. The first page was a laboratory report. The second was a copy of Noah's birth certificate. Then Lily's, then Owen's. The pages beneath contained hospital records, prenatal reports, photographs of sealed sample containers, signed statements from 2 independent laboratories, and a letter from Claire's attorney explaining exactly how every test had been conducted. Damian read the numbers. His face changed. Not dramatically. The change was smaller than that and somehow worse. His jaw lost its tension. His eyes emptied. He looked like a man standing in a familiar room after the floor had vanished. Evelyn stepped closer. "Private tests can be manipulated." Claire finally turned to her. "I expected you to say that. You stole biological material from my son. I obtained a discarded hair sample from a place he visits every month. That does not make the test legitimate." "No. The laboratory records make it legitimate." Walter Cross moved beside Damian and studied the top page. 3 tests. 3 separate laboratories, Claire said. 2 in Wisconsin, 1 in Illinois. Walter read the first result, then the second, then the third. His mouth tightened. Evelyn looked at him. "Do not tell me you accept this. I accept that it requires immediate verification." Damian closed the envelope. His gaze remained on Claire. "Did you plan this?" The question was quiet. Claire understood what he meant. Not the tests, not the documents. The wedding, the entrance, the children walking beside her beneath hundreds of watching eyes. She answered honestly. "I planned to tell you. At my wedding, your mother chose the date." Evelyn's expression did not move, but something colder entered her eyes. Damian looked at the handwritten message on the invitation Claire had placed inside the envelope. He read it once, then again. His thumb pressed against the edge of the card. Victoria Hale appeared at the rear doors of the mansion. Her wedding gown was ivory silk fitted through the waist with a long train carried by no one now. Her veil had been removed. Dark hair fell over one shoulder and the diamond at her throat caught the afternoon light. She did not look like a bride interrupted. She looked like a woman entering a boardroom after discovering everyone had negotiated behind her back. Her father followed several steps behind. Harrison Hale was a broad man with silver at his temples and the stiff posture of someone accustomed to being welcomed before he arrived. Victoria raised one hand. He stopped. She crossed the lawn alone. The guests shifted to make room. She reached Damian and looked at the papers in his hand. "Are they yours?" Damian did not answer immediately. Claire watched Victoria's face. No panic, no tears, only calculation sharpened by anger. "The documents say they are," Damian said. Victoria's gaze moved to the children. Noah watched her carefully. Lily had drawn closer to Claire's side. Owen looked at the train of Victoria's dress. "It is very long," he said. Victoria glanced down at him. "Yes, you might trip." A strange flicker passed through her expression. "Thank you for the warning." Then she looked back at Damian. "Did you know? No. Did your mother Evelyn answered before Damian could?" "Of course not." Victoria turned her head. Then why was Claire invited? Evelyn's voice remained controlled. She had a right to know Damian was moving forward. Victoria studied her. "No, you wanted her to watch." The accusation landed cleanly. Evelyn's lips tightened. Victoria looked at Claire. "Did you come here to stop the wedding?" Claire shook her head. "I came because someone wanted me humiliated, and you decided not to come alone." "Yes." Victoria breathed in slowly. The wind lifted the edge of her dress. For the first time, Claire saw something beneath Victoria's composure. Not jealousy, not humiliation, recognition. Victoria understood what it meant to be used in a transaction designed by older people who mistook obedience for consent. She turned to Damian. "We are not continuing the ceremony until this is resolved." Harrison Hale stepped forward. "Victoria." She did not look at him. "No one discusses my marriage without me. This is a family matter. So is the marriage you arranged." Harrison's face darkened. Victoria removed the engagement ring from her finger. She placed it in Damian's palm beside the envelope. "If those children are yours, this wedding was negotiated under false conditions." Damian looked at the ring. "Victoria, I agreed to marry a man with obligations. I did not agree to marry a man who had 3 children hidden from him by his own family. I did not know." "I believe you." That surprised him. Victoria's eyes shifted toward Evelyn. "But ignorance does not make this arrangement honest." She turned and walked back toward the house. Her train moved over the grass like spilled cream. Harrison followed her after one final look at Damian. The look did not contain sympathy. It contained cost. Walter took control of the next 10 minutes. The guests were moved toward the reception tents and given more alcohol than anyone had planned to serve before the ceremony. The musicians were told to wait. The Blackwood security team sealed the east wings of the house. Claire and the children were escorted to a private sitting room, though this time no one attempted to separate them. Damian followed. Evelyn did too. Victoria entered last now, wearing a dark robe over her gown. She closed the door herself. The room overlooked the lake. Tall windows reflected 7 adults and 3 children caught inside a moment none of them could reverse. Walter stood near the fireplace. A new test will be conducted today. Claire set her bag on a table. I agree. Evelyn looked at her sharply. Claire continued. A laboratory chosen by both families. Separate observers, written chain of custody. I remain present with the children. Damian nodded. Done. Evelyn faced him. You are accepting her conditions before we know anything. I know enough. You know she concealed 3 children from you. Claire felt the old anger rise. Damian looked at his mother. And I know you falsified the circumstances that removed her from this house. Evelyn went still. Victoria noticed. So did Walter. Evelyn's voice dropped. You have no proof of that. Claire opened her bag and removed another document. Dr. Samuel Wynne was never certified in reproductive endocrinology. She placed the page on the table. He had no business making the diagnosis he signed. Damian's gaze moved from the document to Evelyn. Claire continued. The clinic received a $700,000 donation from the Blackwood Foundation 3 weeks before my examination. Walter closed his eyes briefly. It was not surprise. It was the expression of a man recognizing a suspicion he had refused to name. Damian saw it. You knew. Walter opened his eyes. I suspected. You said nothing. I had no proof. You had a duty to look. Walter's face hardened with shame. Yes. The room held the admission. No one rushed to soften it. Lily sat on the edge of a sofa with her hands folded in her lap. Noah stood near Claire. Owen had discovered a bowl of decorative glass stones and was sorting them by color. Claire watched them and wondered how many adults in the room understood that the children were listening. She lowered her voice. We do not discuss this in front of them. Damian looked at Noah. The boy met his gaze without blinking. Damian's expression shifted. He had spent his life speaking in rooms where children were absent, and consequences remained abstract. Now consequence stood 5 feet away in polished shoes. Walter arranged the test through a private medical service used by the Hale family for executive health screenings. A physician and 2 technicians arrived within the hour. Claire inspected every sealed package. Damian removed his jacket and rolled up his sleeve for a blood sample. Noah watched the needle enter his arm. Does that hurt? Damian looked at him. A little. Noah nodded as if storing the information. The children gave cheek swabs. Owen asked whether the swab could tell what he ate for breakfast. The technician smiled. No. Then it is not very smart. Damian almost laughed. The sound never fully emerged, but Claire saw it reach his face. For one dangerous second she remembered the man in her kitchen. Then she looked away. The samples were sealed. Both Claire and Victoria signed as witnesses. A Hale attorney photographed every label. Walter sent 2 Blackwood men with the courier and allowed Harrison Hale to send 2 of his own. No one trusted anyone. The process would take several hours. Walter suggested the children rest. Claire refused to move them deeper into the house. They remained in the sitting room. Food arrived. The triplets ate grilled cheese sandwiches at a marble table worth more than Claire's car. Damian stood near the windows and watched them. He did not approach. Claire appreciated that. Noah whispered something to Lily. Lily looked at Damian, then whispered back. Owen climbed down from his chair and walked across the room. Claire nearly called him back. He stopped in front of Damian. Are you really our father? Damian lowered himself slowly until they were at the same height. I think I am. Owen frowned. You think we are waiting for a test. My mom already did tests. I know. Then why do you need another one? Damian looked toward Claire. She gave him nothing. He turned back to Owen. Because the adults in this room have made it difficult to trust each other. Owen considered that. Mom tells the truth. Yes. Do you... The room became quiet again. Damian did not look away. Not always when I should have. Owen accepted this with the serious attention of a child trying to decide whether honesty about dishonesty counted as honesty. Then he pointed toward the lake. Is that yours, the house is? Do you own the water? Owen nodded. That would be too much water. He returned to the table. Claire looked at Damian. His face had changed again. The power in the room had not prepared him for a 5-year-old asking simple questions. Nothing in his life had. After the children finished eating, Damian asked Claire to speak near the far window. She stayed where she could see them. What happens if the test confirms it when? Damian's eyes narrowed slightly. When it confirms it. Claire folded her arms. You do not take them from me. I would not. Your mother would. My mother will have no authority over them. She had authority over our marriage. The words struck. Damian took them without defense. Claire continued. Their names stay Bennett. They are Blackwoods. They are children. They are my children. And I am the person who kept them alive. Damian's jaw tightened. Claire held his gaze. This is the part where you decide whether being their father means owning them or knowing them. He looked toward the table. Noah was arranging sugar packets in rows. Lily was drawing on a napkin. Owen had begun asking a guard whether the guard had ever shot anyone. Damian lowered his voice. What do you want? I want control over their daily lives. You have it. I want every visit scheduled through me. He nodded. No armed men near their school. That may not be possible. Then you do not go to their school. Claire, they have lived 5 years without security teams. I will not let your presence turn their childhood into a guarded hallway. If people know who they are, the risk changes. Then we address the risk without teaching them that danger is normal. Damian looked at her for a long moment. What else? No photographs released. No public statement without my approval. No change of surname, no family ceremonies, no promises made to them before I hear them. And my mother, she does not see them. Something in his expression tightened. Claire did not stop. If anyone threatens me, follows me, contacts, their teachers, approaches my aunt, or attempts to remove the children from my care, I send everything I have to federal investigators. The room seemed colder. Damian's voice lowered. You came prepared to destroy us. I came prepared to survive you. He looked wounded. Claire felt no satisfaction. That disturbed her more than satisfaction would have. Damian glanced at the children again. Understood. The word came quietly. No argument, no threat. Claire had expected resistance. His acceptance left her with nowhere to place the anger she had sharpened for years. At 4:13 in the afternoon, the laboratory called Walter. The results had been verified twice. Walter placed the phone on speaker. The physician read the conclusion in a calm, professional voice. Damian Blackwood was the biological father of Noah Bennett, Lily Bennett, and Owen Bennett. The probability exceeded 99.999%. No one spoke. Claire watched Damian, his eyes closed. Only for a second. When they opened, the children were looking at him. Noah understood first. You are our father. Damian's voice was rough. Yes. Lily studied him. Are you married? Damian looked toward Victoria. Victoria stood near the fireplace, arms folded beneath the dark robe. No, she said before he could answer. The word ended the wedding more completely than any announcement could have. Walter asked Damian and Claire to remain. Harrison and Victoria joined them at the long table in the council room. The triplets stayed in the adjoining library with 2 nurses and Claire's phone playing a cartoon at low volume. Claire left the connecting door open. Walter placed an old leather folder on the table. The Blackwood Charter was amended after Damian's birth. Every biological child of the current head must be entered into the protected succession record. Harrison leaned back. You expect us to treat a criminal family charter as law? No, Walter said. I expect you to understand what it controls inside this organization. He opened the folder. Recognition triggers an asset disclosure, a reserve review, and the creation of protected trusts. Evelyn's face remained still. Her hands did not. One finger pressed hard against the table. Claire noticed. So did Victoria. Walter continued. The review begins within 24 hours. Harrison looked at Evelyn. Was this disclosed during the marriage negotiations? There were no recognized children, Evelyn said. There were 3 biological children, unknown to us. Victoria's voice cut through the room. Unknown, because you created a false diagnosis and removed their mother. Evelyn turned. You are making conclusions without evidence. Victoria slid Dr. Wynn's certification records across the table. I know what evidence looks like. Harrison stood. The movement was slow and controlled. I brought my daughter into this house under representations that are now false. Damian rose as well. I did not know. That does not restore the terms. No. Harrison stared at him. The two men had spent a year negotiating shipping access union support casino revenue and political protection. Now every agreement sat beneath 3 names written into an old family book. Victoria removed the robe. Beneath it, she still wore her wedding gown. She reached behind her neck and unclasped the diamond necklace. She placed it beside the ring. I will not marry into a family that treats women as disposable documents. Evelyn's eyes hardened. This has nothing to do with you. Victoria's laugh was soft and without humor. I was standing at the altar of a transaction built to solve your problem. It has everything to do with me. She looked at Claire. Not warmly, not with friendship, but with respect. I am sorry you were brought here for humiliation. Claire nodded once. Victoria turned to Damian. I do not blame you for children you did not know existed. Damian waited. I blame you for becoming the kind of man who could lose a wife without asking why she stopped fighting. Damian's face tightened. Victoria walked out. Harrison followed. By sunset, every Hale vehicle had left the estate. The contracts tied to the marriage were frozen. Access to Hale casinos ended. The proposed shipping partnership through the Great Lakes collapsed. Millions in preparation costs vanished. Hundreds of millions in projected revenue became meaningless numbers on unsigned pages. Damian watched the last car disappear through the gates. Then he went upstairs to find his mother. Evelyn stood in her private sitting room facing the lake. The room smelled of roses and smoke from the fireplace. Damian closed the door. He held Dr. Wynn's report in one hand, the new DNA result in the other. Was it real? Evelyn did not turn. You have already decided what you believe. Was the report real? Claire was never suited for this family. Damian crossed the room. That was not my question. She was emotional, isolated, unprepared for the responsibilities attached to your name. Was it real? Evelyn turned. For the first time that day, the mask slipped. Not fear, irritation, the anger of someone forced to explain a decision she believed no one had the right to question. No. The word entered Damian like a blade. He stared at her. Evelyn lifted her chin. The diagnosis was exaggerated. You forged it. I resolved a problem. She was pregnant. You did not know that. She signed the papers while carrying my children. Evelyn's face changed, only slightly. Her eyes moved away. Damian saw it. You knew there was a chance. I knew no such thing. You knew enough to make sure no one looked. Evelyn stepped toward him. You were grieving your father. The organization was unstable. Claire could not support you. She had no understanding of what leadership required. She was my wife. She was a weakness. Damian's voice broke through the room. She was pregnant. Evelyn went silent. Damian pressed the new result onto the table. 3 children spent 5 years without me because you decided my marriage was an obstacle. They spent 5 years without you because Claire hid them. You gave her a reason to believe we would take them. I would have protected them. You would have controlled them. Evelyn's mouth tightened. There is no difference when bloodlines are at risk. Damian stared at his mother. At the woman who had taught him power meant preventing other people from choosing against him. At the woman he had trusted more than the wife who once waited for him in a small kitchen with a chipped blue mug. He lowered his voice. You will not go near Claire. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. You do not command me. I do now. This family requires continuity. This family has 3 children you tried to erase. They are Blackwoods. They are Claire's children. And yours. Yes. Damian stepped closer. That is why I will protect them from you. He left before Evelyn could answer. Downstairs, Claire was helping Lily put on her coat. Noah stood near the door. Owen had fallen asleep on a sofa with one shoe missing. Walter approached Claire. The succession notice goes to the commission in 3 days. Claire lifted Owen carefully, and until then, Walter's face was grave. The children are known, but their protected status is not yet formal. What does that mean? It means anyone who wants leverage may see a brief opportunity. The weight of Owen in her arms suddenly felt fragile. Damian entered the room and heard the final words. "Where are you going tonight?" Claire looked at him. "Somewhere safe. I need the address." "No." His old authority rose instinctively. "Claire, you need to know they are safe. You do not need to know where. I can protect them." "You are the reason they need protection." The sentence stopped him. Walter watched carefully. Damian's eyes moved to Noah, Lily, and Owen, then back to Claire. He breathed in. The fight left his shoulders by force. "Give the address to Walter," Claire studied him. "You will not ask him for it. No. You will not follow us. No. You will not send anyone unless I approve it." Damian's voice was quiet. "Agreed." Claire looked at Walter. She gave him the name of her aunt and the Wisconsin address in a low voice. Walter wrote it down. Damian did not move closer. Claire carried Owen toward the door. Noah and Lily followed. At the threshold, Lily looked back. "Goodbye." Damian's face softened. "Goodbye, Lily." Noah said nothing. Claire stepped outside. The night air had turned cold. Behind her, the house glowed through tall windows, bright and enormous, and suddenly less permanent than it had appeared that morning. The children climbed into Claire's car. She fastened Owen's seatbelt while he slept. Noah watched the mansion through the rear window. "Is he coming with us? No. Does he want to Claire close the door? Yes." Noah thought about that. Why did you tell him no? Because wanting something does not make someone ready for it. She started the engine. The gates opened. Claire drove away from the estate for the second time in her life. This time she did not leave alone. Inside the Blackwood office, Financial Director Martin Reese opened the reserve accounts required by the succession review. Walter stood behind him. Damian stood near the desk. The first account showed a discrepancy of $200,000. The second showed nearly $1 million. By the fourth account, Martin had stopped speaking. He removed his glasses and rubbed both hands over his face. Damian looked at the screen. "How much I do not know yet. Estimate." Martin swallowed. "Several million." Walter moved closer. "Transferred where shell companies. Nevada, Delaware. Accounts routed offshore. Authorized by whom?" Martin clicked through the records. A digital signature appeared. Evelyn Blackwood. Then another. And another. Damian stared at his mother's name. Outside, an engine started near the private garage. Walter crossed to the window. A black sedan moved down the rear drive. Evelyn sat in the back seat. 2 suitcases rested beside her. The car reached the gate before Damian's men understood she was leaving. By the time they called, her phone had already been turned off. On Martin's screen, another hidden transfer opened. The amount was larger than all the others, and beneath it was the name of a company none of them recognized registered to an address in Detroit. Damian leaned closer. "Who owns it?" Martin searched the record. His face drained of color. Walter read the result over his shoulder. The room went silent. The company belonged to Silas Kane. Damian read the name twice. Some men built fear through noise. Silas Kane had built his through patience. He controlled freight depots outside Detroit, private gambling rooms across Michigan, and a chain of storage facilities positioned along the interstate between Chicago and the Canadian border. His legitimate businesses appeared modest on paper. His influence did not. Silas rarely threatened anyone directly. He allowed time debt and other men's desperation to do the work for him. Walter Cross placed both hands on the back of Martin Reese's chair. How much went through the company? Martin continued searching. The screen filled with transfers. Some were small enough to disappear inside ordinary operating expenses. Others were routed through construction contracts, consulting fees, and equipment purchases that never existed. $2.4 million through this account, Martin said, possibly more through related companies. Damian looked toward the dark window. His mother's car had already vanished beyond the estate walls. Find every entity connected to Kane. Martin nodded. Start with 6 years. Walter spoke quietly. Go back 8. Damian turned. Why 8? Walter looked at the screen rather than at him. Because that is when your father began asking questions about the reserve accounts. The room became still. Damian's father had died 7 years earlier. A sudden heart attack during a private meeting. No investigation, no reason for one at the time. Damian stepped closer to Walter. What questions Walter's face had the careful restraint of a man choosing which truth could be survived first. He noticed withdrawals that did not match the quarterly reports. Your mother said they were related to political expenses, and you believed her. I accepted the explanation. That is not what I asked. Walter finally met his eyes. No. Damian looked away. The house around them felt altered. The same walls, the same dark wood, the same family portraits arranged in perfect lines. Yet everything now appeared staged as if the estate had never been a home at all, only a set built around Evelyn's version of events. Martin opened another ledger. A series of transfers began 18 months before Damian married Claire. The dates continued through their courtship, through the wedding, through the fertility appointments, through the divorce. Damian stared at the timeline until the numbers blurred. Print everything. Martin looked over his shoulder. We are talking about thousands of pages. Then use every printer in the house. Walter moved toward the door. Where are you going to locate your mother? Damian shook his head. No, find out what Kane knows. Walter stopped. Damian, if she ran, she knows we found the accounts. Kane may know the same thing. Martin glanced at the Detroit address on the screen. If he knows about the audit, he knows why it began. The meaning settled over all three men. The children. Damian reached for his phone. Claire did not answer. He called again. The second call went directly to silence. He stared at the screen. Walter spoke carefully. She said she would not give you the location. I know what she said. Then respect it. Damian's voice hardened. Do not speak to me about respect while my children are being discussed by men like Kane. Walter did not move. You gave Claire your word. Damian looked at him. For years, men had obeyed before he finished speaking. Walter was asking him to do something harder. Wait, trust a woman he had failed, except that his fear did not grant him ownership. Damian lowered the phone. Call her aunt. Walter did. Claire answered on the first ring. Walter listened. Then he covered the receiver. They are safe. Damian closed his eyes for one breath. Tell her I need to speak with her tonight. Walter relayed the message. Claire's answer came quickly. She says no. Damian took the phone. Claire. Silence answered him for a moment. Then her voice. The children are asleep. I need to see you. No. We found money connected to Silas Kane. The line went quiet. Claire knew the name. Anyone who worked in freight around the Great Lakes had heard it whispered eventually. Drivers avoided certain lots outside Detroit. Dispatchers knew which companies never had inspections. Managers learned that some routes existed on paper for reasons unrelated to cargo. Claire's voice changed. How much we do not know. That is not an answer. Millions. Another silence. Come tomorrow, she said. Tonight. No. Claire. If you arrive here tonight with armed men, you expose the address Walter promised to protect. I can come alone. You are never alone. Damian looked at Walter. I will leave my driver 2 blocks away. Claire considered it. 10 in the morning. 8. 9:30. Damian almost argued. Then he stopped himself. 9:30. She ended the call. At 9:28 the next morning, a black sedan parked near the corner of Claire's street in Milwaukee. Damian stepped out alone. He carried a file beneath one arm. The driver remained inside the car. Claire watched from the second-floor window. She waited until Damian reached the front steps before opening the door. He wore no tie. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. The cold had reddened the skin across his knuckles. Claire stepped aside. The apartment was quiet. The children were at school. Damian entered and stopped. He had seen the room briefly through the open door at the wedding, but he had not understood it then. Now he saw everything. 3 backpacks hanging from brass hooks. A row of small shoes beneath a bench. Crayon drawings taped to the refrigerator. A paper sun with 5 stick figures beneath it. 4 had names written above their heads. Mom, Noah, Lily, Owen. The 5th figure stood farther away, no name. Damian looked at it too long. Claire closed the door. Sit down. He moved to the sofa. There was a faded blanket folded over one arm and a small plastic horse trapped between the cushions. Damian picked it up and placed it on the table. Claire sat in the chair across from him. The room placed no grand desk between them, no long council table, no men waiting to interpret silence, only a narrow coffee table marked by rings from children's cups. Damian set down the file. We confirmed almost 12 million missing from the reserve accounts. Claire did not react visibly. How long? At least 6 years, possibly 8. Where did it go? Shell companies, offshore accounts, debt payments to Kane? A significant portion. Claire looked at the file. Why would Evelyn owe him? We are still reconstructing it. That means you know part of the answer. Damian opened the folder. He placed copies of transfers across the table. Investment losses, private gambling, political payments. Some of the transactions may have funded operations she never disclosed. Claire studied the pages. Evelyn's signature appeared again and again. Not always written by hand, sometimes authorized through a proxy, sometimes hidden inside corporate approvals. What was the wedding supposed to do? Damian met her gaze. The Hale agreement would have opened shared credit lines and casino revenue channels. My mother could have moved funds between the organizations. She was going to cover the missing reserves with Hale money. Yes. And if no one looked closely, the new money would make the old money disappear. Yes. Claire sat back. The wedding had been more than an alliance. It had been a wall built in front of a collapsing structure. Victoria was not a bride. She was liquidity. Damian was not a groom. He was access. Claire looked again at the dates. One transfer caught her attention. It had been made 2 months before Damian proposed. Another had been made 3 weeks before Evelyn invited Claire to the estate for the first time. Claire pulled the page closer. What is this company, West Harbor Consulting? It has no freight activity, we know. No office expenses either. Damian watched her read. Claire's finger moved down the columns. Every payment is followed by a deposit into a different reserve account. Yes, this is not random theft. No, she was moving losses. Damian's expression tightened. Claire turned the page. A withdrawal appeared 4 days after her first fertility appointment. Another appeared the week Dr. Wynne signed the false report. Claire's breathing slowed. The room seemed to narrow around the paper. How early did she know Damian did not pretend to misunderstand? We do not know. She asked about my parents the first night I met her. I remember. She asked whether I had brothers. Yes, whether I had cousins. Damian lowered his eyes. Claire looked at him. She was not deciding whether she liked me. No, she was deciding whether anyone would come after her if she removed me. Damian did not speak. The truth did not require his agreement. Claire stood and walked to the window. Below, a city bus stopped at the corner. A woman in a red coat hurried across the street carrying groceries. A boy rode past on a bicycle despite the cold. Ordinary life moved with insulting ease. Claire pressed one hand against the window frame. She chose me. Damian remained seated. Yes, not because I was safe for you. His voice was quiet. Because you were safe for her. Claire closed her eyes. The first dinner returned with perfect clarity. So little family, the faint smile, the questions asked in a tone of sympathy. She had believed Evelyn saw weakness. The truth was worse. Evelyn had seen opportunity. Claire turned. The fertility report was not about finding you another wife. Damian's face changed. He had reached the same conclusion, not only. Claire crossed back to the table. When a new heir is recognized, the charter forces a reserve audit. Yes. If I had become pregnant, the child would eventually enter the succession. Yes. And the accounts would open. Damian nodded. Claire looked down at the transfer dates. She did not need me to be barren. No, she needed everyone to believe I was. The words settled between them. 5 years of pain rearranged themselves. Claire had spent years believing Evelyn hated her because she lacked power, bloodline, and refinement. She had believed the divorce was contempt made official. Now she saw the machinery beneath it. Evelyn had not removed Claire because Claire was useless. She had removed her because Claire might give birth to the one person capable of forcing the books open. 3 children had done exactly that. Damian reached for the file, then stopped. I'm sorry. Claire's eyes lifted. He continued. I know the words do not change anything. They do not. I should have questioned the doctor. Yes, I should have questioned my mother. Yes, I should have come after you. Claire held his gaze. Yes. Damian absorbed each answer. No defense, no explanation. Claire sat again. Do not make your regret the center of what happened to me. I am not trying to. You came here with the face of a man who wants me to tell him he was manipulated too. His jaw tightened. I was. You were also protected by the lie. The sentence struck deeper. Claire leaned forward. I lost my home, my marriage, my name, my security, and the right to make choices without fear. You lost a wife you allowed your mother to remove." Damian looked down at his hands. Claire continued, "I am not saying you did not suffer. I am saying your suffering did not begin until the truth reached you. Mine began the day you stood by the window and let me sign." He nodded once, slowly. "I understand." "No, you are beginning to." The front door of the apartment building opened below. Footsteps crossed the hallway. Both of them listened until the sound passed. Damian looked toward the children's backpacks. "We need to discuss Kane." Claire's anger cooled into attention. "What does he know?" "He know we contacted one of his companies through an intermediary, and his people called Grant Mercer before we reached them." Claire recognized the name. Damian's personal advisor. The man who had stood near the council table during the wedding. "What did they say?" "They requested repayment. How much? 9.2 million with interest." Claire stared at him. "That is more than the amount transferred to Kane's companies. They are counting private penalties." "Of course they are. They also want control of the Toledo corridor." Claire's expression sharpened. "What part?" "The freight route from Chicago through northern Indiana into Ohio. That is not repayment. No, that is permanent access. Yes." Claire stood again and walked to a drawer beside the kitchen. She removed a folded map of regional freight lines. Damian watched her spread it across the table. She placed one finger near Chicago. "The Toledo corridor connects lake freight to interstate routes east." "I know. No, you know it is valuable. I know why." Her finger followed the line through Indiana. "If Kane controls these warehouses, he can redirect cargo before it reaches the Ohio inspections. That gives him access to 3 state systems using one paperwork chain." Damian leaned over the map. "He wants the route for movement. He wants invisibility." Claire moved to another line. "And he does not need to own the companies. He only needs authority over dispatch schedules and storage transfers." Damian studied her. "How do you know this?" "I have spent 12 years moving freight legally." She looked at him. "The legal system shows you exactly where criminals hide. They choose places where responsibility changes hands." Damian returned to the file. Kane's representative also mentioned the children. Claire's face went still. "How he said 3 previously unknown Blackwood heirs living outside the family security structure created uncertainty. Those were his words. Yes. What did he ask for? Nothing directly. Then it was a threat. Yes." Claire folded the map. "Damian said I can pay him." She stopped. "From my personal accounts? No. It ends the debt. No, it proves the threat works. It keeps the children alive." "For how long?" Damian's voice hardened. "As long as necessary." Claire faced him. "And when he wants another route? Another payment? Another favor? I will deal with that. That is what your family says before every problem becomes inheritance." Damian rose. "What would you have me do? Give him nothing. He has named my children, our children." The correction left Claire's mouth before she could stop it. Damian heard it. Something moved across his face. Claire did not allow the moment to grow. "If you pay him because he mentioned them, he will understand they are the fastest way to control you. I will not gamble with their safety. Neither will I." "Then tell me your solution." Claire looked at the records again. Where did these shipment codes come from? Damian followed her gaze. "Which codes?" She pointed to a group of entries beside payments to Kane-controlled companies. "These internal transfer references. No, they are route identifiers." Damian moved closer. Claire read them aloud. The numbers corresponded to yard storage times and destination regions. One code appeared more often than the others. A Detroit warehouse. A second code appeared beside unusually high insurance charges. A third appeared on dates when no Blackwood shipment was officially recorded. Claire pulled another page from the folder. "Do you have manifests Martin is collecting them? I need all of them." "Why?" "Because Evelyn was not only paying Kane." Claire tapped the codes. She was moving something for him. Damian's expression darkened. "Drugs, maybe, weapons, cash, people. The codes do not tell us cargo. You can prove that I can prove the shipments existed when the legal records say they did not." Damian watched her connect dates. Claire's mind moved faster now. Fear had become structure. Structure could be used. If we identify the false shipments, the routes become evidence. Evidence for whom? Federal investigators. The room changed. Damian stepped back. "You want to take this to the government." I want Kane to lose the ability to use our children as collateral. You know what a federal investigation does to my organization. Yes, hundreds of people depend on those companies. Then separate the legal companies from the criminal ones. It is not that simple. It never is when powerful men explain why they cannot stop. Damian's eyes hardened. Claire met them. This is the choice. No, it is one option. It is the only option that does not teach Kane that threatening children is profitable. Damian turned toward the window. For most of his adult life, the Blackwood organization had been described to him as a living inheritance, a family body. Every warehouse a limb, every root an artery, every loyal man a cell serving something larger than himself. Claire was asking him to cut it open, not to save the organization, to reveal what lived inside it. He looked at the drawing on the refrigerator. The fifth figure without a name. How quickly can you identify the shipments if I have the records 2 days? And after that, we approach an organized crime task force with evidence Kane cannot bury. You assume they will protect the children. I assume they will want the case. That is not the same thing. No. Claire folded the map carefully. But it gives us leverage outside a room controlled by men who consider blood a form of currency. Damian looked at her. You have thought about this before. I have thought about what I would do if your family found us every day for 5 years. The admission silenced him. A knock sounded at the apartment door. Damian moved immediately. Claire raised one hand. Do not. She went to the door and looked through the peephole. A courier stood in the hallway holding a sealed package. Claire did not open it. Leave it on the floor. The courier did. She waited until his footsteps disappeared. Damian checked the hallway before lifting the package. There was no company logo, no return address. Only Walter Cross's name written across the top. Damian called him. Walter answered quickly. Did you send a package to Claire? Number Damian looked at the box. Then someone used your name. Do not open it. Claire studied the tape. It has already been screened. Damian looked at her. How can you tell there is a security seal beneath the outer tape? Walter heard her. Bring it to the estate. Claire shook her head. No. Opening it there gives Evelyn's people time to interfere. Walter's voice tightened. We do not know what is inside. Claire carried the package to the kitchen table. Damian removed a small knife from his pocket. She looked at it. You came alone with a knife. I said I would leave the armed men outside. That is not the same thing. It is close. Despite herself, Claire nearly smiled. Damian cut the outer tape. Inside was a metal document case. The locks were already open. The case contained ledgers, account records, audio drives, copies of signed loan agreements, and a handwritten letter. Damian recognized the writing before touching it. His mother's. He unfolded the letter. Damian, I built the machine that trapped you. I will not allow Silas Kane to inherit it through your children. The records are complete. Do not waste them protecting my name. Evelyn. Claire watched Damian read it again. What does complete mean? He began removing documents, original agreements, private account numbers, lists of payments, names of officials, warehouse addresses, a digital recorder labeled with a date from 8 years earlier. Damian pressed play. Evelyn's voice filled the apartment. Calm, controlled. You will receive the first transfer after the shipment clears. Then, Silas Kane. I do not extend credit for sentiment, Evelyn. No one asked you to. The recording continued. Routes, payments, protection agreements. Enough detail to connect Kane directly to Blackwood infrastructure. Damian stopped the recording. Claire looked at the evidence. She is giving you everything. Yes. Why Damian folded the letter? Because Kane mentioned the children. That does not erase what she did. I know. Claire believed him. The realization felt strange. Damian gathered the records. We take this to Walter, no. He looked at her. We make copies first. Claire, if this is the only complete set, it does not travel until there are duplicates in places no Blackwood can control. Damian studied her, then nodded. They spent the next 3 hours scanning every page. Claire saved encrypted copies to separate drives. One went into a bank box under her aunt's name. One went to her attorney. One remained with her. Damian took the originals. By late afternoon, the children returned from school. They stopped in the doorway when they saw him. Owen looked pleased. You came back. Damian stood. I did. Noah looked at Claire first. She nodded. Lily removed her coat. Are you staying for dinner? Damian looked at Claire. The question was not his to answer. Claire considered him. 1 hour. Owen dropped his backpack. We are having chicken. I like chicken. Noah does not like the green part. It is parsley, Noah said. It is still green. For 1 hour, Damian sat at Claire's small kitchen table while the children argued over parsley and homework. He did not mention Cain. He did not mention the estate. He listened when Lily described a classmate who had stolen her purple pencil. He helped Owen open a milk carton. Noah watched him with open suspicion. When the hour ended, Damian stood without being asked. At the door, Claire spoke quietly. We need to move, I know. Not to the estate, I know. Somewhere outside your normal properties. I have a lake house in northern Wisconsin. It is held through a private trust. Who knows about it, Walter? Grant, my security chief, Martin, too many people. I can reduce the team. No household staff. Agreed. I bring my own car. Agreed. The children are told it is temporary. Yes, Claire looked at him. You stay in a separate building. Damian's mouth tightened. There is a guest cabin. That is where you stay. He nodded. The lake house sat beyond a narrow road surrounded by pine trees. Snow covered the ground in thin patches beneath the shade. The main house faced dark water and a wooden dock pulled halfway onto shore for winter. Claire arrived with the children before sunset. Damian's security team had already checked the property. Claire checked it again. Every room, every window, every exterior door. She made the children choose beds. Owen wanted the room overlooking the lake. Lily chose the smallest room because it had a window seat. Noah chose the room closest to Claire. Damian remained outside until she permitted him to enter. The children spent the evening exploring. For them, the danger looked like a vacation. They found board games, a shelf of old fishing books, a wooden box filled with cards. Owen asked Damian whether there were bears. Sometimes. Do they open doors? Not usually. What if they learned Damian considered that? Then we lock them. Claire watched from the kitchen. He was not natural with them. He paused too long before answering. He looked toward her whenever a question carried emotional weight. But he stayed. He listened. He did not try to buy affection. That night, Owen woke with a fever. Claire heard him coughing through the wall and went to his room. His skin was hot. She carried him to the bathroom, gave him medicine, and placed a cool cloth against his forehead. A floorboard creaked in the hallway. Damian stood outside the door. He had crossed from the guest cabin without a coat. Cold air still clung to him. What happened, fever? Do we need a doctor? Not yet. He stepped forward. Claire looked at him. Damian stopped. What do you need, water? He brought it. A clean cloth. He brought that too. Call the nearest urgent care and confirm their hours. He moved into the hallway to make the call. Owen opened his eyes. Is he worried? Yes. About me? Yes. Owen closed his eyes again. Good. By dawn the fever had dropped. Claire opened the bedroom door and found Damian asleep in a chair outside. His head rested against the wall. His hands were empty. No gun, no phone, no command waiting to be obeyed. Owen saw him too. He stayed. Claire looked at Damian. Yes. The day passed quietly until a dark sport vehicle appeared on the access road. It drove past once, then again 20 minutes later. Damian's security chief checked the plate. The vehicle was registered to a rental company connected to one of Cain's shell businesses. The children were moved away from the windows. Damian ordered the road closed. Claire stood over the property map. How many people knew this location for? You, Walter, Grant, Martin, your security chief. Yes, one of them told Cain. Damian's face hardened. I will question all of them. No. He looked at her. We give each person a different location. Claire placed 3 fingers on the map. A warehouse outside Rockford, a farmhouse near Green Bay, a private residence in Indiana. Damian understood. Whoever Cain approaches gave him the address. Yes. Walter received the farmhouse. Martin received the warehouse. The security chief received the Indiana residence. Grant Mercer received a 4th address, a vacant hunting property west of Madison. They waited. For 6 hours, nothing happened. Then a surveillance team reported 2 Cain vehicles approaching the hunting property. Damian called Grant. The phone rang once, then stopped. He called again. The number had been disconnected. Walter sent men to Grant's Chicago apartment. The rooms were empty, clothes gone, laptop gone. The safe removed from the wall. On the kitchen counter sat a glass of water, half full as if Grant had left only minutes earlier. Damian stood in the lake house study with the phone pressed to his ear. Walter's voice came through the line. "He is gone." Claire watched Damian's face. Grant had stood beside him for 4 years. He had attended private meetings, carried family codes, managed schedules, reviewed security plans. Damian ended the call. For a long moment he did not move. Then he looked through the study window toward the main house where Noah, Lily, and Owen sat on the floor playing cards. His voice was low. "He gave Cain my children." Claire stood beside him. "No." Damian looked at her. "He gave Cain an address." Outside, Owen slapped a card onto the floor and shouted that he had won. Noah immediately accused him of changing the rules. Claire watched them through the glass. Then she looked back at Damian. "Now we make sure it is the last useful thing Grant ever gives him." Damian looked at Claire across the quiet study. Outside the window, the children continued their card game. Owen celebrated a victory no one else recognized. Lily gathered the cards with patient disapproval. Noah watched the adults through the glass, pretending not to. Damian lowered his voice. "Grant knows every private route we use. Then stop using them. He knows our security schedules. Change them. He knows the names of men I trust." Claire held his gaze. "Then stop trusting names." The words struck with more force than accusation. Damian turned toward the desk. Grant Mercer had stood at his right hand for 4 years. He had entered meetings without being searched. He had carried messages between Damian and Walter. He had known which guard protected which entrance, which attorney handled which account, and which family member could be pressured without creating noise. Grant had been present when Damian signed the Hale agreement. He had reviewed the wedding security plan. He had stood inside the council room while Claire presented the children. He had seen Noah, Lily, and Owen before Cain's people learned their names. Damian reached for the telephone. "Lock every Blackwood property Grant can access." Claire stepped closer. "Do not only lock them." He looked at her. "Watch them." Damian understood. "If Grant returns for something, we follow him." "Yes. And if Cain sends someone instead, we follow them too." Damian called his security chief. Within 20 minutes, every Blackwood office storage building residence and private garage connected to Grant went under silent surveillance. No alarms were activated. No doors were visibly reinforced. The organization pretended not to know it had been betrayed. Walter arrived at the lake house before sunset. He entered the study carrying Grant's personnel file and a small black notebook recovered from a desk in the Chicago office. Martin Reese followed with 3 encrypted drives. Claire remained near the window while the men spread the evidence across the table. Walter opened the personnel file. "Grant joined us 4 years ago through a recommendation from Judge Hollis." Damian frowned. "Hollis retired 2 years ago. He died 6 months later." "Did anyone verify the recommendation?" Walter's silence answered. Damian's voice hardened. "Did anyone? I spoke to Hollis personally. And he said Grant had done work for a private political group and understood discretion." Claire looked at the file. "Did he say which group?" "No, did you ask?" Walter closed the folder. "No." Damian stared at him. Walter did not look away. Another failure. Another door left unopened because the man standing beside it wore the right suit and spoke with the right confidence. Martin inserted one of the drives into a secure computer. "We found hidden access logs on the reserve server. Lines of data filled the screen. Grant had entered the financial system 17 times during the year before Evelyn's missing money was discovered. Most visits occurred between midnight and 3 in the morning. He had no financial authority," Damian said. "He used your credentials," Martin replied. Damian turned. "How?" Martin hesitated. "Your old authorization token. I destroyed it. You ordered Grant to destroy it." The room went silent. Claire watched Damian absorb the distinction. A command was not an action. Trust had filled the space between them. Grant had lived inside that space. Walter opened the black notebook. Most pages contained ordinary schedules and coded initials. Near the back, several columns of numbers repeated beside the letters S.K. Silas Cain. Martin compared the numbers to bank records. Payment dates. Claire moved closer. How much Grant received $80,000 the month he joined the organization. Smaller payments every quarter after that. Damian's mouth tightened. He was never loyal. Walter turned another page. A date had been circled. The date of the Blackwood wedding. Beside it, Grant had written 3 words. Succession may change. Claire felt cold move along her arms. He knew before Kane's people called. Damian looked at her. How he saw the children enter. That only gave him hours. Hours were enough. Martin searched the access records. Grant had entered the protected charter files 20 minutes after the DNA test was ordered. He had opened the succession provisions. He had also opened the financial disclosure requirements. Grant understood before anyone else that recognizing the children would trigger an audit. He contacted Kane immediately. Claire looked through the study window again. Noah had stopped playing cards. He was standing now watching her. She forced her expression to soften. He did not appear convinced. Walter's phone rang. He answered, listened, and looked toward Damian. Kane has filed a petition with the commission. Damian rose. On what grounds collection of a family debt? When is the hearing tomorrow at noon? Martin looked at the clock. That gives us less than 20 hours. Walter ended the call. Kane submitted Evelyn's signed agreements. He claimed she had authority to bind the entire Blackwood organization. She did not. She functioned as matriarch and reserve trustee. The agreements were concealed. That may not matter to the commission. Claire turned from the window. What happens if they approve his petition? Walter answered her. Kane receives authority to seize Blackwood assets equal to the debt. Which assets he named the Toledo corridor, 3 Chicago warehouses, and the private freight yard near Gary. Claire stared at him. That is more than $9 million. Walter nodded. He is not collecting money. He is taking infrastructure. Damian's voice remained calm. Then we challenge the valuation. Walter shook his head. The commission does not decide value the way a court would. It decides whether Kane's claim preserves order, and giving him half my freight network preserves order. Allowing a family to ignore a signed debt would weaken every agreement made through the commission. Claire moved to the map still spread across the desk. Kane filed before the federal evidence could be submitted. Yes, Walter said. He wants authority from the commission before an investigation freezes the assets. Yes. Damian looked at Walter. Can we delay the hearing not without appearing afraid? We are afraid, Claire said. The question is whether pretending otherwise helps. Walter studied her. It would not. Claire traced the route between Chicago and Toledo. If Kane receives control, he can move cargo before federal agents know which facilities to monitor. Martin nodded. He could also destroy records. Damian looked at the encrypted drives. How much evidence is ready enough to show financial crimes? Martin said. Not enough to connect Kane directly to illegal shipments. Claire stepped toward the computer. Then we finish the manifest tonight. Walter looked doubtful. There are thousands. We do not need all of them. She pulled a chair to the desk. We need a pattern strong enough to open a federal case. Damian stood behind her. What do you need? Every declared shipment connected to the Detroit warehouse. All recorded weights, inspection times, driver logs, fuel charges, insurance records. Martin began opening files. Claire continued. And the false route codes Evelyn used. Walter looked toward the main room. The children cannot remain here while we work. Claire did not turn. They remain where I can see them. Damian said I will bring the files into the dining room. Claire looked at him. We all work there. The long wooden dining table became an operations center. Laptops replaced dinner plates. Maps covered the polished surface. Walter called attorneys. Martin searched account records. Damian contacted trusted warehouse managers without revealing the full reason. Claire sat at the center with shipping manifests arranged by date. The children watched a movie in the adjoining room. Every few minutes, Claire looked through the open doorway. Noah sat closest to the hall. He was no longer watching the film. He was listening to the adults. At 9:30, Lily appeared beside Claire. Are we in trouble? Claire set down the document in her hand. We are being careful. That means yes. Claire looked at her daughter. Lily's face held no accusation, only a need for truth. There are people who want something from Damian's family. Do they want us? They think we can help them get it. Lily looked toward Damian. Can we know? Then why do they think that? Because some adults believe people can be used like money. Lily considered the answer. Are they wrong? Claire touched her hair. Yes. Damian stood several feet away listening. Lily looked at him. Will you make them stop? Damian crouched. I am trying. Lily's expression remained serious. My mom always says trying is not the same as doing. Damian glanced at Claire. She is right. Lily returned to the movie. Walter watched her go. Your children speak like negotiators. Claire resumed reading. They learn to ask direct questions because adults rarely give direct answers. Near midnight, Claire found the first link. A shipment declared as industrial pumps had left Detroit for Gary 2 years earlier. The manifest listed a total weight of 18,000 pounds. The warehouse scale recorded 31,000. The insurance file had been altered after delivery. Claire placed the documents together. This one. Martin leaned over. The weights do not match. Not by 13,000 pounds. Damian studied the route. What was actually inside, we cannot know from this alone. Claire searched the driver log. The driver's name had been removed. A fuel receipt remained. She matched its time to a toll camera entry. The truck had stopped at a Kane storage property outside Ann Arbor before reaching Gary. Martin found 3 more shipments with the same pattern. Then 5. Then 11. The false cargo descriptions changed. Machine parts, restaurant equipment, building supplies. The excess weight remained within a narrow range. Walter looked over the growing stack. What would weigh that much, Claire answered without looking up. Crated rifles, ammunition, cash, any dense cargo loaded beneath legal freight. Damian's face darkened. Find destination records. Martin searched. The trucks ended at Blackwood warehouses, but the cargo disappeared from inventory within hours. Claire found payments to private loading crews. Every crew company traced back to Grant Mercer. At 1:40 in the morning, they had 27 suspicious shipments, 6 false companies, and 4 direct connections between Grant and Kane. Walter called federal prosecutor Rachel Monroe. She agreed to meet before dawn. The meeting took place in a closed service station 20 miles south of Milwaukee. Rachel arrived in an unmarked car with financial investigator Ethan Cole. She was 40, composed and unimpressed by the Blackwood name. Ethan carried 2 locked evidence cases. Claire stood beside Damian beneath fluorescent lights that buzzed above empty fuel pumps. Rachel looked at the files. You understand that handing this over does not grant immunity. Damian nodded. I am not asking for immunity. Walter shifted slightly. Rachel noticed. You may want to reconsider before you say that again. Damian did not. My children have been threatened. That gives you motivation. It does not erase your history. I know. Rachel turned to Claire. And you, I want protection for my children. I cannot promise that tonight. Then tell me what you can promise. Rachel studied her. If the evidence is authentic and creates an immediate threat connected to a federal crime, we can request emergency protection. How long hours if the threat is specific? Days if it is not. Claire placed the photograph recovered from one of Kane's vehicles on the hood of Rachel's car. It showed the triplets entering the wedding. A red circle had been drawn around each face. Rachel's expression changed. Where did this come from? A surveillance vehicle connected to Kane, Damian said. Ethan examined it. Do you have the vehicle records? Walter handed them over. Rachel looked through the manifests. How many shipments can you verify? 27, Claire said. More exist. Can you prove the cargo? Not yet. Can you prove the records were altered? Yes. Ethan opened his laptop. Claire walked him through the route codes, weight discrepancies, toll records, insurance changes, and shell loading companies. He stopped interrupting after 10 minutes. Rachel watched Damian. Why should I believe you did not authorize this? Damian answered plainly. You should not. Investigate me. Walter looked at him. Rachel's eyes narrowed. You are prepared to open every Blackwood company? Yes. Private accounts? Yes. Communications? Yes. Properties? Yes. Claire watched him. The answers came without hesitation. Rachel closed the file. We will begin an emergency review. No guarantees. Claire stepped closer. Kane's commission hearing begins at noon. Rachel looked at her. That is not a federal proceeding. It controls whether he takes the warehouses containing the evidence. Rachel glanced at Ethan. He understood. If the case is opened before the hearing, we may be able to freeze the named assets. Before noon, Claire asked. If authentication moves quickly, Damian said, what do you need? Rachel looked directly at him. Everything. They returned to the lake house shortly before sunrise. The children were asleep. Damian's security chief met them at the door. A vehicle passed the road twice. Claire stopped. Same vehicle, no. Different plates. Connection. We are checking. Damian ordered another perimeter sweep. Claire entered the house and went directly to the children's rooms. Lily slept beneath the window. Owen had kicked off his blanket. Noah's bed was empty. Claire found him sitting on the floor of the hallway. He held the wooden model airplane kit Damian had brought from a shelf in the study. It was unopened. What are you doing awake? Noah shrugged. You left. I came back. You did not tell us. I told the security team. You did not tell me. Claire sat beside him. You are right. Noah looked at the box. Is Damian staying? Yes, because people are coming, because we are being careful. Noah's eyes lifted. That means yes. Claire almost smiled despite the exhaustion. You and Lily have been talking. She listens. So do you. Noah pressed his thumb against the edge of the box. Will Damian take us if something happens to you? The question struck so deeply Claire could not answer at once. Noah waited. No one is taking you from me. That is not what I asked. Footsteps sounded at the end of the hall. Damian stood in the doorway. He had heard. Claire looked at him. He approached slowly and sat on the floor across from Noah. If something happened to your mother, I would protect all three of you. Noah's shoulders tightened. I do not want to live in your big house. You would not have to. You said we are Blackwoods. Damian glanced at Claire, then back at Noah. You are Bennett's. Noah searched his face. And Blackwoods only if you decide that name belongs to you. Claire felt her throat tighten. Noah looked down at the airplane. Do you know how to build this? No. You bought it. Yes. Why buy something you do not know how to build? Damian rested his arms on his knees. I thought we could learn together. Noah considered that. Then he pushed the box across the floor. Not now. Damian nodded. Not now. At 8:16, Rachel Monroe called. The financial evidence had been authenticated. A federal case could be opened, but the weapons connection required one more verified link. Without it, the asset freeze might not reach Kane before the commission hearing. Claire returned to the dining table. What link? A witness or physical record proving Kane controlled the false cargo. Walter searched the recovered files. There may be recorded calls in Evelyn's package. Martin began reviewing the audio drives. Damian contacted warehouse supervisors. Most knew nothing. One refused to speak. Another claimed records had been destroyed in a flood. At 9:40, Martin found a recording from 3 years earlier. Evelyn's voice. Grant's voice. Then Kane. The audio was incomplete. Kane discussed a delayed shipment and demanded that 14 crates move before state inspectors arrived. No cargo was named. Claire listened twice. Find the date. Martin searched the file metadata. Claire matched it to the manifests. 14 crates had moved from Detroit to Gary under a declaration for restaurant ovens. The recorded weight matched the excess weight on the scale report. Ethan Cole requested the original warehouse surveillance archive. Damian's security chief called the Gary facility. The archive was missing. Grant had ordered it removed 6 months earlier. Claire stared at the manifest. Drivers keep copies. Walter looked at her. Not for 3 years. Independent drivers do. She found the carrier listed on the original insurance form. The company no longer existed, but the driver's license number remained in a state database. Ethan traced him to a repair shop outside South Bend. The driver agreed to speak only after learning the federal government already knew the route. He remembered the crates. He remembered armed men. He remembered Grant signing the release. Most importantly, he had kept a photograph because the load had damaged his trailer floor and he wanted proof for an insurance claim. The photograph showed one broken crate. Inside were rifles packed in black foam. At 10:52, Ethan received the image. At 11:14, Rachel filed the emergency case. The federal clerk accepted it at 11:27. The commission hearing would begin in 33 minutes. Damian stood near the front window with the phone in his hand. Claire watched the road. A dark truck appeared between the trees. It moved slowly, too slowly. The security chief spoke through his radio. Unknown vehicle approaching the west entrance. Damian moved toward the door. Claire grabbed his arm. No. He looked at her. You stay with the children. No. You stay inside. This is my security team. And those are our children. His eyes shifted toward the hallway. Claire continued. If they want you outside the road is the trap. The lights went out. The refrigerator stopped humming. The house fell silent. Then the exterior cameras went black. Damian's hand moved beneath his jacket. Claire heard men running outside. A gunshot cracked through the trees. Lily screamed from the living room. Claire ran to the children, downstairs. Noah grabbed Owen's hand. Lily moved toward Claire. Another shot struck the front wall. Wood splintered near the window. Damian reached the hallway. There is a reinforced storm room beneath the kitchen. Claire pulled the children toward the stairs. Come with us. I need to hold the entrance. That is what your men are for. They need direction. Claire stared at him. The old Damian stood before her for 1 second, built from command control and the belief that danger belonged to him alone. Then Owen started crying. Damian looked at his son. He pressed the radio into the security chief's hand. Hold the perimeter. No one moves vehicles onto the road. Claire saw him make the choice. He followed them downstairs. The storm room was narrow and lined with concrete. Emergency lights glowed along the ceiling. Claire locked the steel door. Above them, gunfire moved across the property. Owen covered his ears. Lily pressed against Claire's side. Noah stood very still. Damian crouched near the door, listening. Claire pulled the children close. Look at me. They did. We are going to tell the lake story. Owen shook his head. I do not want the lake story. It is the one I know best. Another burst of gunfire sounded overhead. Claire began anyway. She told them about a fisherman who believed the moon had fallen into the water. Her voice remained steady. She described a silver boat, a lantern, and 3 children who crossed the lake to return the moon to the sky. Lily listened. Owen's breathing slowed. Noah kept watching Damian. A heavy impact struck the floor above. Damian's radio came alive. 2 men at the rear, 1 down, 2nd moving east. Damian responded quietly. Do not chase beyond the tree line. The security chief acknowledged. Minutes passed. The gunfire stopped. No one moved. Damian waited for the coded confirmation. When it came, he unlocked the door alone. Claire remained with the children. He returned 10 minutes later. Blood marked one sleeve. Claire stood. Are you hurt, Num? Whose blood? Ben Carter's. He was hit in the shoulder. The attackers, 1 dead, 1 captured, 2 escaped. Claire looked at the children. Did they reach the house? Noah's voice was quiet. Were they here because of us? Damian looked at him. Yes. Claire expected him to soften the truth. He did not. Noah's chin trembled, but he held it still. Damian continued. They came because men like Cain believe fear makes families obey. Does it? Damian looked at Claire before answering. It used to. They left the storm room after the property was secured. The captured attacker carried a phone, a photograph of the triplets, and written instructions to force the Blackwood convoy onto the access road. Claire had been right. The road had been the trap. 1 vehicle waited 2 miles away with restraints blankets and 3 doses of children's sedative. Damian read the inventory. His face emptied. He walked outside and stood beside the frozen lake. Claire found him there. Blood had dried dark on his cuff. You should change your shirt. He did not answer. Claire stopped beside him. For a long time they listened to wind move through the pines. Damian spoke without looking at her. Part of me is angry with you. Claire remained still. For hiding them. Yes, I have imagined 5 years I should have had. Claire looked toward the house. You are allowed to grieve them. He turned. But I understand why you did it. She said nothing. I made myself someone you could not trust with the truth. The words came slowly. No performance. No demand that she deny them. I thought obedience made me strong, he continued. I thought trusting my mother without question proved loyalty. It only made me useful to her. Claire watched his face. He looked exhausted, not broken. Breaking suggested a single moment. This was a man recognizing that his life had been built from choices he could no longer blame on inheritance. Understanding does not erase it, she said. I know. You do not get those 5 years back. I know. The children may never feel what you want them to feel. I know. Claire studied him. For the first time, Damian's apology did not ask her to carry any part of it. Her phone rang. "Rachel Monroe," Claire answered. "The federal case is open," Rachel said. "The asset freeze has been submitted. Kane's named warehouses and the Toledo corridor are under emergency review. Has the commission hearing started? Not yet. There is something else." Claire looked at Damian. "What Kane knows, the case was filed. He is already inside the commission building. Then he has someone in the federal clerk's office. Or someone watching the building." A vehicle appeared at the end of the lake road. Security raised weapons. The car stopped before the gate. The rear door opened. Evelyn Blackwood stepped out. She wore a dark coat and carried no luggage. 2 federal vehicles followed behind her. Damian stared. Claire lowered the phone. Evelyn walked toward the house with an agent on either side. Her face was pale, but her posture remained exact. Damian met her at the gate. "Why are you here?" Evelyn looked past him at Claire, then toward the windows where the children stood under guard. "Because Kane filed the debt under the family name. You ran. I gathered what he could not deny. You already sent the records. The records prove the transactions. They do not remove his claim." Walter approached. "What will Evelyn?" Looked at him. "My testimony." Damian's expression hardened. "You expect the commission to believe you acted alone. I did not act alone. Then who helped you?" Evelyn's eyes moved toward the federal agents. "That answer belongs inside the hearing." Claire stepped closer. "You knew Grant worked for Kane." Evelyn looked at her. "I suspected him. For how long? 6 months. And you left him beside Damian. I needed to know what he was sending." Damian's voice turned cold. "He sent my children's location." For the first time, Evelyn's composure cracked, only a fraction. But Claire saw it. "I did not know he had the address. You knew what he was. I knew he was compromised. I did not know how deeply." Damian stepped toward her. "You taught everyone around you that people were tools." Grant learned well. Evelyn absorbed the words. Then she looked at Claire. "Kane believes blood is leverage." "He learned that from you," Claire said. "Yes." The answer came without defense. Evelyn looked toward the children again. "I will not let him use what I taught him against them." The commission hearing had already been delayed once. It would not be delayed again. Damian, Walter, Claire, and Evelyn traveled to Chicago under federal escort. The children remained at the lake house with Claire's aunt Rachel Monroe and an expanded protection team. Noah did not want Claire to leave. She knelt in front of him. "I am coming back. You said that this morning, and I came back." Noah looked toward Damian. "Is he going to?" "Yes." "Then who stays people I trust?" Noah's eyes narrowed. "Do you trust them because you know them or because they have the right names?" Claire glanced at Damian. The question belonged to both of them. "Because I checked," she said. Noah nodded slowly. At the commission building, black vehicles filled the underground entrance. Men from 7 organizations occupied the upper floors. Some wore tailored suits, some wore union jackets. All understood why Kane's claim mattered. A debt recognized today could become a weapon tomorrow. Claire entered through a private corridor. She was not a commission member. She had no vote. Yet every man who saw her knew the hearing existed because she had walked into a wedding with 3 children. Silas Kane stood at the far end of the corridor. He was taller than Claire expected. Silver hair, dark suit, no visible security. He looked at Damian first, then at Evelyn. Finally, his eyes settled on Claire. There was no anger in them, only interest. "You found the manifests," he said. Claire did not answer. Kane smiled faintly. "Logistics people are dangerous. They notice what powerful men assume is too ordinary to matter." Damian stepped between them. Kane's smile remained. "You should have paid the debt. You threatened children." "I identified collateral." Claire moved so she could see him. "They are not collateral." Kane looked at her. "Everything is collateral when enough is owed." Federal agents appeared at the end of the corridor. Kane glanced toward them. His expression did not change. "The commission will decide what belongs to whom." Evelyn spoke behind Damian. "No, I will." The hearing room doors opened. Walter entered first. Kane followed with his attorney. The heads of the 7 families took their places around the long table. Damian looked at Claire. "You do not have to enter." Claire held his gaze. "Yes, I do." Evelyn stood beside them, stripped of her estate, her guards, and the unquestioned authority that had once filled every room before she did. For one moment, the three of them faced the closed doors together. The wife Evelyn had exiled, the son she had controlled, the mother whose empire had brought them all there. Then the doors opened again. Claire walked inside. Damian followed. Evelyn entered last. The heavy doors closed behind them. Silas Kane sat at the far end of the table as if the room already belonged to him. 7 men represented 7 criminal families across Chicago, Detroit, northern Indiana, and western Michigan. No one raised his voice. No one needed to. The threat in the room lived beneath polished wood-folded hands and the silence of men accustomed to deciding who was protected and who could be taken. Walter Cross placed Kane's petition on the table. The claim concerns a debt incurred by Evelyn Blackwood and secured through Blackwood-controlled companies. Kane leaned back. Evelyn acted as reserve trustee and family matriarch. Her signature bound the organization. Damian sat beside Claire. Across from them, Evelyn remained perfectly still. Walter opened the first agreement. The debt was concealed from the acting head of the Blackwood family. Kane smiled faintly. Poor leadership does not invalidate a signature. Damian's jaw tightened. Claire touched his wrist beneath the table, not to comfort him, to stop him from giving Kane the reaction he wanted. The oldest commission member looked toward Evelyn. Did you sign these agreements? Yes. Did you borrow money from Kane? Yes. Did the funds serve the Blackwood organization? Evelyn looked at the documents. No. Kane's attorney shifted. Evelyn continued. The money covered private losses, unauthorized investments, and obligations I concealed from my son. Kane's expression did not change. One of the commission members leaned forward. You expect us to believe $12 million disappeared without benefiting your family. I expect you to believe the records. Walter placed the original ledgers on the table. Martin Reese had marked every private withdrawal, false company, and hidden transfer. Evelyn pointed to her own signatures. These were mine. The companies were mine. The instructions were mine. Kane looked at her. You are attempting to protect your son. Evelyn finally met his eyes. I am separating my failure from his organization. You had authority. I abused it. The room grew quieter. Men like those around the table understood abuse of authority. They practiced it daily. What unsettled them was hearing someone admit it without negotiation. Kane's attorney placed another agreement in front of Walter. The debt remains valid regardless of how she used the funds. Claire spoke for the first time. The debt may be valid against Evelyn. Every face turned toward her. She continued, but the warehouses Kane wants were also used for shipments now under federal investigation. Kane looked amused. This woman has no standing here. The oldest commission member studied Claire. She found the records. Kane's smile faded slightly. Claire placed copies of the freight manifests beside the debt agreements. If you transfer those facilities today, you are not settling a private debt. You are giving Kane control of evidence connected to illegal weapons shipments. No one touched the papers. They did not need to. Federal agents waited beyond the doors. Every man in the room knew it. Kane leaned forward. You believe government paperwork frightens me. No, Claire said. I believe prison does. The words landed without drama. Kane stared at her. Claire held his gaze. He had expected fear because fear had always worked. Evelyn had feared exposure. Grant had feared losing access to power. Men had signed away Roots companies and lives because Kane understood how to wait until fear made the decision for them. Claire had spent 5 years living beside fear. It no longer impressed her. Walter's phone vibrated. He read the message. The federal freeze has been granted. A murmur moved around the table. The Toledo corridor and the 3 warehouses named in Kane's petition cannot be transferred. Kane's attorney rose. This commission is not governed by federal procedure, no, Walter said, but every person in this room would become part of a conspiracy by accepting assets under active seizure. The commission members looked at one another. Kane saw the decision moving away from him. He turned toward Evelyn. You think confession saves your grandchildren? Evelyn did not look away. No. Then why do it? Her voice lowered. Because I taught you to believe blood was leverage. For the first time, regret entered her face without disguise. I will not let you use that lesson against them. Kane's control cracked, only for a second. It was enough. The doors opened. Federal agents entered with Rachel Monroe at the front. Silas Kane rose slowly. No one reached for a weapon. No one spoke in his defense. Rachel read the charges: racketeering, extortion, illegal weapons trafficking, financial conspiracy, threats involving protected witnesses and minor children. Kane looked past Damian and fixed his attention on Claire. "You destroyed a great deal for a woman who wanted an ordinary life," Claire answered quietly. "You threatened the wrong ordinary life." The agents took him away. Grant Mercer was arrested that same afternoon at a private airfield near the Canadian border. He had cash in 3 currencies, 2 passports, and a Blackwood security code written inside his coat. By nightfall, the commission rejected Kane's claim. The Blackwood organization survived the hearing. It did not survive the truth. Damian opened every company to federal review. He surrendered control of the freight yards, gambling rooms, and private accounts connected to criminal operations. Several businesses were closed. Others continued under court-approved management after investigators separated legal revenue from illegal money. Damian stepped down as head of the family. Men who had once waited outside his office stopped calling. Politicians returned donations. Business partners claimed they had never known him well. The Lake Forest estate was sold. The white limestone house, the iron gates, and the lawn where Claire had appeared with the triplets passed to a real estate developer who planned to divide the property. A trust was created for Noah, Lily, and Owen from legally cleared assets. Claire controlled it with an independent financial guardian. Damian placed his own name outside the trust. "That money belongs to them," he said. Claire looked over the documents. "You cannot withdraw from it, I know. You cannot use it as leverage, I know," she signed. Evelyn entered federal custody under a cooperation agreement. Her testimony reduced her sentence. It did not erase it. Claire visited her once 6 months later. The meeting room had pale walls and a table bolted to the floor. Without the estate around her, Evelyn looked smaller, not weak, only human. She sat across from Claire. "How are they safe? Do they know who I am? They know you are Damian's mother." Evelyn waited. "And what else? They know you hurt me. They know you helped stop Kane." Evelyn lowered her eyes. "I sent the evidence. Yes, I came back. Yes." Evelyn looked up again. "Does that matter? It matters?" Hope entered her face too quickly. Claire did not let it remain misunderstood. "It does not erase what came before." Evelyn nodded slowly. "I know, no, you are beginning to." The words were the same ones Claire had given Damian. This time they felt different. Not like a wound, like a boundary. Evelyn asked whether she would ever meet the children. Claire stood. "That choice will belong to them when they are old enough." She left without offering forgiveness. Damian began seeing the triplets every Tuesday. The first visits were supervised. He arrived with expensive gifts. Claire made him return them. "Bring something you can do with them." The following week he brought a model airplane kit. Noah watched him open the box. "Do you know how to build it?" "No." "Then why did you buy it?" "You buy it." Damian sat on the floor. "I thought we could make mistakes together." Noah considered that. Then he handed Damian the instructions. Lily asked harder questions. "Why did you not find Mom?" Damian did not blame Evelyn. He did not hide behind ignorance. "I believed what was easiest for me to believe." Lily looked at Claire. "That was selfish." "Yes," Damian said. Owen asked whether Damian was still a criminal. Damian paused. "I did criminal things. That is not what I asked." Claire remained silent. Damian looked at his son. "No. I am trying not to be that man anymore." Owen accepted the answer for the moment. Noah remained guarded longest. He watched Damian for signs of command. When Damian raised his voice, Noah moved closer to Claire. When Damian arrived late once Noah refused to speak to him for the entire visit. Damian returned the following Tuesday 15 minutes early. No excuses, no gift, only an apology. One afternoon, Noah asked the question he had been carrying since the lake house. "Will you ever take us away from Mom?" Damian knelt in front of him. "No." "How do I know? Because she would stop me." Noah did not smile. Damian continued. "And I would help her." Something changed in Noah's face. Not trust. The first place trust might grow. A year after the wedding, Claire invited Damian to dinner. Not because everything had been repaired. Because he had arrived every Tuesday. Because he had answered difficult questions. Because he had stopped asking Claire to move faster than she could. The kitchen table was too small for 5 people. Owen accused Noah of taking the largest piece of garlic bread. Lily corrected Damian's math while he helped with homework. Noah carried the finished model airplane from the living room and placed it in Damian's hands. One wing sat slightly lower than the other. Damian studied it as if it were priceless. After dinner, the children disappeared into the living room. Claire stood at the sink. Damian picked up a towel. For several minutes, they worked without speaking. Then Damian said, "Thank you." Claire handed him a plate. "For dinner, for another Tuesday." She looked at him. "You have not earned all of them, I know. But you earned this one." Their hands touched. Claire did not pull away immediately. From the living room, Owen called out, "Are you coming next week?" Damian looked at Claire before answering. She gave a small nod. "Yes," he said. "I will be here." The empire was gone. The mansion belonged to strangers. The Blackwood name no longer opened every locked door. What remained was smaller. A crowded kitchen, a crooked model airplane. 3 children deciding for themselves who their father would become. Claire had not returned to reclaim a husband. She had returned to protect her children from a lie. The lie destroyed a wedding. The truth destroyed an empire. What survived was not power. It was 5 people learning that a family could not be commanded into existence. It had to be earned, one Tuesday at a time.